Hey, Anton.
Yeah, Margaret?
You know what people don't talk about enough?
What?
The way after Wilhelm's speech, when he looks directly at the camera, he's making all of us the general public. Welcome to People Don't Talk About Young Royals. I'm Margaret, my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Anton. My pronouns are he, they.
And we're here to discuss the show our friends are too sick of hearing us talk about.
If that sounds like you, stick around. If your friend sent you this podcast out of a desperate attempt to get you to watch Young Royals, take it as a sign.
Go watch Young Royals, then come back to this podcast.
Margaret, what are we talking about today?
Today we'll be discussing the cinematography of Season 1, Episode 1.
Woo! A little disclaimer for you. In this discussion, we won't be summarizing the plot of the episode because we already did that. If you need or want a refresher, head back 2 episodes in our feed to our most recent This Week at Hilarska for a full breakdown. This episode discussion will likely be all over the place, so strap in. You have been warned.
I need you to know that yesterday when I was watching this at like 1 a.m., I kept rewatching the same scene, even though I had all my notes taken, because I was like, oh, this was so good. And that's when I started texting you.
These notes definitely took like both less time and more time than I feared that they would. Like, don't want to immediately derail discussion, but like I feel like it's just interesting from like a meta point of view that like it didn't help that little behind the scenes next episode is art of the choice, and I filled out both scripts at the same time because
me too.
We're recording it on the same day. More behind the scenes stuff. So basically, like, I'm looking at acting choices and cinematography at the same time on 2 different documents and going back and forth between the 2 and making sure I'm in the right document, which it definitely is. Yeah. It definitely adds to the time, but
yeah.
Regardless, you good.
Yeah.
You're good.
Or I would get stuck looking at one and I'd be like, oh, the acting in this scene is so good. And then I would get to the end of the scene and I'd be like, I forgot to look at the cinematography. Crap. Now I gotta go back.
Yeah.
And then I would do the exact same thing again in the same scene. I'd be like,
by the end, I feel like I got pretty good at being able to recognize like what is cinematography and what is acting, which might actually be a good little extra disclaimer that we don't have scripted out for this episode. For people who maybe not familiar with the term cinematography, or just like don't really know how we're going to distinguish between what's cinematography and what's acting. The way I did it personally, and we might run into things across the course of these episodes that were like, wait, this actually belonged in the other script, and that's fine. I see cinematography. I use it as a very broad term in the context of this episode as anything that wasn't the actor's decision. Anything that was probably like the director blocked it this way, the literal cinematographer decided that it should look this way, something that is about the artistry of the filmmaking itself and not about the choices that actors are making to bring the text to life.
100%. Yeah, that's also kind of how I did mine as well.
Cool. Glad that is true because we didn't talk about that beforehand.
No, we didn't. We did not.
I'm like, Margaret knows what cinematography is. All right. Well, you're hosting this episode, so your first point is a bit later than my first point, but true to form, you get to start.
Okay. It's not the first point I made, but it's the one I used in our opener. The first point I made was about the room that the speech was in. I don't want to talk about that first. I want to talk about the way that we zoom in on Wilhelm after he gives his speech in the exact way that like the camera recording his speech is, so that we are the general public who is watching this speech. And how from that moment on, everything we see is his public life that he lives for the general public.
Yeah.
And that just makes me crazy every time I watch that scene.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm looking at my notes, and I was for a reason. I mean, I think I knew how much episode I still had left, and I was like, Margaret's going to talk about this. I'll just write in like we got to talk about the zoom in, but we're probably going to anyways. So then I moved on. No, but I definitely agree. I think that is definitely everything up until that point is preamble for that shot.
100%. Yeah.
Like everything else is context in order to get us to this place where we discover kind of and I feel like I always am like stop myself before I say something really dramatic and then I say it anyways. I'm like that's when the show becomes the show and tells you what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm going to probably keep bringing it up every episode, but like as someone who's watched many reactors, like every single time, almost every single reactor will include that. Actually, I actually don't know if there's a single reactor that I've watched who reacts to the pilot and doesn't include their reaction to Wilhelm turning to the camera.
Because you can't not. It's so, like, impactful.
And because this is an art of the frame, we are talking specifically about the choice to tell the actor, Edvin, to do that. And like the way it is shot.
Yes.
So I guess, do we have specific thoughts on that?
I mean, I've got a lot of thoughts on the way, especially the first one, how we can see the camera that's recording his speech. We can see that camera. And the way that we zoom in to him is very much like that camera is zooming in on him. It's not like, here's the camera over here, and now we're zooming in on him, like, in the front. It's like, there's a camera off to the side, he's talking to the interviewer. We're not the interviewer, we're the general public that he's looking at.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what makes it impactful.
Yeah. Like, on the one hand, like, he is looking at a different camera than the one, he's talking to a different camera than the one we're looking through. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like, it still has this, like, I feel like I can't remember what specific interview it was, but I'm pretty sure it was like Rajda probably directed this episode, like, because it's the pilot. But like I think they've talked about somewhere like the ways in which why that zoom is so long, and like. Until I saw that interview, but I noticed it this time around how early that zoom starts.
It starts really early.
It literally starts from basically the like aide, like assistant publicist person being like, whenever you're ready. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really, I think I just had this thought now. It's really sad that the camera kind of, I'm pretty sure it starts zooming in before he like gives any indication that he's ready, because he's not ready. He never says he's ready.
He's not. Yeah.
It just starts happening.
Yeah. And it's like he doesn't even have control over when his interview starts.
No. And he doesn't.
It's just like whenever you're ready, but actually we're already rolling, so it doesn't matter when you're ready. We're ready for you to start.
Yeah. We're already rolling and we're already zooming in on you. We're already the public is already honing in on you, and we already have all eyes on you, and are waiting for you to screw up. And then he immediately does, which is like a different conversation. But like, we didn't really talk because it wasn't necessarily pertinent in our previous episode about Wilhelm and Simon. The way in which Wilhelm just kind of fumbles over his words, and like the thing again. Think bear with us, audience, as we try to figure out what should go in art of the frame and what should go in the art of the choice. But like from a cinematography angle, the camera is catching all of that.
100%.
Like it relentlessly moves in, regardless of the fact that he messes up, and just keeps moving at the same pace as we watch him mess up, start over again. And fumble a little bit, but then keep going, and then give the speech fine. I think he does fine. Like given how he's feeling, I think he actually does amazingly. But like, it's the fact that it's such a long shot. Like this show knows how to do quick cuts, and when it stays on the same shot for a long time,
there's a reason.
Yeah, especially if it's like it's not a static shot because we're zooming in, but it's not like we're moving across the room or anything. Like we are fixed on a single point, and then we just keep narrowing in on it.
Yeah, and the way that they keep narrowing in, even though he's made a mistake, is like, it's not, I'm assuming that this was like a pre-recorded, but it's never like explicitly said that it is. But if it is a pre-recorded thing, the way that they keep moving in makes it so that they're not gonna like cut and edit out his like fumble, because then the like video won't be cohesive.
I think
like they just keep going.
Yeah, I think they keep going because they don't want to have more than one take to hold on to memory. I would guess actually that they do probably cut that out.
Probably, but like the principle behind it is like,
yeah, the principle,
we're gonna catch all of this.
Yeah, the principle behind it is that he doesn't know that is the thing.
Right.
Is like he doesn't get control over how his image is used, and what parts of this recording they keep.
Yeah.
Like he can maybe imagine that like the parts that are like don't look as well for the royal family might not be included, but that doesn't mean that it's any less of an invasive scene.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly it. And just like the room that they're in it's such like an imposing room because they look so small.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know you have this in your notes, so we can talk about. You can talk about.
Well,
that.
I was thinking in this. My earliest note starts earlier than the place we were just talking about, and so I guess in the spirit of order, like, I don't know.
Yeah, let's go back to the first one.
Yeah, because like that deserved to be talked about first, but like, so our disclaimer isn't totally a lie. Yes, this probably will be all over the place, but like in an episode like this, we should at least try to stay in the same order unless we get tangent on different things. Yeah. So basically, what I have up before that is just like the split between the limo and what actually happened at the nightclub, is masterful to me. Like I'm always so impressed by it. Like it was like I mentioned this, I believe in our first episode. Like that was such an intense. Like first like minute to me that I like immediately stopped watching. The first time I started the show. It's very intense. Because I was like, I don't know, man. So, but
it's very intense.
But on top of that, like it's chaotic, but I think it's just very efficient storytelling, where like you don't, with basically no direct explanation or dialogue, you're just like, oh, so they like got too close. He wasn't giving them the attention that they wanted, and they're like, fuck you. Like, and then, like, also before that, like, before we enter the room where he gives the speech, that little, for the audience, at the timestamp 1:58, there's just, like, a tableau of the royal court where, like, basically no one is moving for a good, like, couple seconds. So you just get to, like, basically take it in like a fucking painting. And it's just so good. Like, they use, I'm assuming that's just like the best recreation they could do of the Swedish Royal Palace, but even so, like it does such a good job of like, we do not spend much time in this room and in this place, but it tells me what this world is.
100%, yeah.
Because it is antique, and it's so ornate, and everyone is so careful. Like it strikes me as like my house is a historical monument and like / museum.
Yeah.
And I can't ever fully like relax on my furniture. Like
yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. And like you get that even more when they actually enter the room. And so I know you have thoughts about that, so we can.
Yeah, the room where they give the speech, right? Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have thoughts. You've kind of covered it. It's just like so ornate and like to me, they look so like I don't want to say they look insignificant because they're the Swedish royal family. Like they're not insignificant, but in comparison to the room, the 4 individuals sitting on the couch are like not the most. I don't even know how to word this.
I mean, the room takes up more.
It takes up more of the frame, and it also just takes up more
of the frame than they do.
I don't want to say attention because I wouldn't say the first time I was like looking around at the room, but like there's just so much there that compared to the 4 that are sitting on the couch, they're not even like the most significant portion of what's going on in that scene, even though the scene is fully about them. Does that make sense? I don't even know if that's really what I mean.
Yeah. And no. Yeah, but like I'm looking at your notes. Like I noted this when I summarized this scene for our This Week at Hilarishka episode. Like I can't tell, and I don't know enough about the Swedish monarchy, unfortunately. Like, one of these days I might want to try to look up what that painting is behind them.
Yeah, I just assumed it was some, like, royal from a long time ago.
Yeah, and, like, she looks young enough to make me think that she might have been a princess, not a...
Yeah.
Which, like, also would be on theme. Either way, like, it's clearly some historical important figure from the family, like, of in the past, like, basically haunting them from behind.
Yeah, it's haunting them, and it reinstills, like, this tradition that is so important to the royal family. That, like, they're fully built on tradition, let's be honest here. And it just, to me, that scene, they look so comparatively insignificant. You've got the, like, former royal behind them. To me, it comes across very, like, the individual person does not matter to the institution. They're just, like, a placeholder to continue the institution. That's how that scene reads to me. Like, the individual doesn't matter.
Which I think that gets reinforced by your next point, which I think could be art of the choice, but because it feels like such a scripted moment, I would call it art of the frame. Like the choice to have Wilhelm and Eric be asked to switch places.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I think there's this thing where they all have their place, and Wilhelm didn't sit down in his right one. And so they're like placing them like dolls of being like, oh no, that you're not where you're supposed to be. So let's push you where you're supposed to be. And I think it's notable that where he's supposed to be is next to his mother, the person who is just staring at him the entire time, being like,
she's just staring him down with this, just like, I am disappointed in you.
She's like, she's just like, you've screwed up enough, don't mess up.
Yeah. He's got so much pressure on him. Like, I would fuck up so many times if I had that much pressure on me. I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah, to
me, because we don't see anything about the royal family before episode 1. Like, there's no like flashback to like what their dynamic was before all this. We don't know any of that. So I'm assuming that his like correct place is probably next to the queen, like before all this happened. But to me, having him sit next to his father, and then it's like, no, you gotta go next to your mother. She's like shortening his leash. Like, you used to be able to go to public school. Now you have to go to this private school so we can like control everything. You were sitting next to your father. No, you gotta sit next to your mother so that like she can control that as well. Like, to me, it feels very much like you're shortening whatever, like, freedom he did have.
Yeah.
You've, like, gotten rid of it all.
I really like the read of that. And then, like, looking ahead, like, the, like, what, we get the look, which it's iconic for the series. We already talked about it, but like it's worth reiterating, especially for you real ones out there who are watching along with us, who don't know what the rest of the show is. Just know that look is iconic. And so, but then from there, something that I think people don't talk about enough is our opening credits, because they really behave like looking forward a little bit, like they behave not really like any opening credits we get anywhere else in any other episode of the show, because they're this really almost like avant-garde isn't the term, but like they're just very they're way more they're really artsy in the sense of like they're literally kind of just playing with that idea we're just talking about of them like in a tableau in a painting portrait, and then it go from the family to just Wilhelm, and we're just like staring him dead in the eyes of him just being like, this is my life, I guess.
I almost feel like I'm watching something I shouldn't be seeing, because it's like so, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's almost like,
yeah,
I feel like I'm like breaching his privacy again in that moment where you're just like staring him down, and it's like the opening credits and the title card.
Even just in this first episode, I think we start getting a hint that that's kind of a theme of Wilhelm's relationship to the camera that I think we're going to come back to in these Art of the Frame episodes time and time again.
100%.
Is that there is basically no time when Wilhelm is comfortable.
No.
In front of the camera.
No. And his entire life is in front of the camera. Except for like when he is alone. But
even then,
yeah,
we're there.
Right.
And
we're the general public.
I don't know if this is the right episode to talk about this.
But
we need to talk about it eventually.
It
might come up in our next episode too. My theory is that Wilhelm is never not aware that the camera is there.
We've talked about this off mic, haven't we? Because I fully agree with this. Yeah, yes. I think he's constantly aware that like we are watching him.
In moments, he can forget. Like when he's drunk outside with Simon, I think at a certain point he can just like not be like, I don't care.
Yeah. And I think there's certain times, I brought this up later in my notes, so we can come back to it, but there's one specific time where we see him in like a vulnerable-ish state. And it's the first time that we see him in the episode without like his princely demeanor, his princely like facade.
Is it when he's texting his mom at night? Yeah. I thought about that scene a lot more this time too, because I feel like I never really recognized that is the first time we see him alone.
It's the first time we see him alone. It's also the first time he talks to his mother, besides the like when she like stop. Is just yelling at him.
Yeah, like the stop that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he does say something. He says like, I want to live a normal life or something along those lines to her, but it's not a conversation they're having.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why we cut away and what she says in response becomes voiceover. Yeah. Like he that's not a conversation.
No,
that is a lecture.
It's a lecture. I mean, and so is the texting, because she's just like, "You'll feel better soon. Shut up."
Yeah,
but
I guess backing to where we were in the episode, you wanted to talk about the students in the windows that I didn't realize until the summary episode.
Yeah. So, when Wilhelm and Eric get to the school and they're like, greeting the headmistress. Yes, they're greeting the headmistress, and August is there and Alexander is there. If you like look behind, the windows are full of students. And so not only is he getting his picture taken to be like put in tabloids and like whatever royal press release is going to happen now that Wilhelm has started school at this this private boarding school. You also have like all the students of the school that are just like trying to look in on his life.
Yeah.
And it's so much in the background that you don't even notice unless you're like looking in the background, which I think is just kind of the truth of his life. Like, people are always looking in, always watching, always trying to see what he's going to do next and where he's going to screw up next, whether he notices them looking. Like, whether he consciously notices them looking or not.
Yeah. And, like, your note here about the way Wilhelm's entire view in front of him is the photographer. Yeah. Yeah.
When they're in the church.
When they're sitting down, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
When
they're sitting down, the photographer's just like right there.
The flashing. I almost wrote that down, and then it was almost too depressing for me to write down. I'm like, I need to keep going. Because, yeah. It's just like...
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's like purposely disorienting.
Yeah.
But in order to pull away from that for a second, then we get the entrance of the choir. And Simon, framed from Wilhelm's perspective. Like, I feel like this is the first time I've fully noticed it because I was looking at the cinematography. Is the angle is from below, so it's literally from Wilhelm's eyes.
Yes. And that was a common theme throughout the entire episode that I didn't really notice until I was watching it last night looking for cinematography. Is we always see those two characters from, like, when they are together. I still haven't I was gonna time how long they're in, like, frame together, like they're in a scene together. I still haven't done that.
It's all good. We have 10 more episodes in this about this episode.
That is true. But we almost always, when the two of them are together, we almost always see the one from the other's perspective.
Yeah. And like, well, and we talked about this last episode, but like the choir scene is the one point at which they are in the same scene, but we have at least established for us in our own headcanon that Simon does not know where Wilhelm is. Probably knows who he, like, what we probably knows what he looks like, but is not looking out for him and is not seen to spot him.
No, he's just singing.
No, but that's because what's important is this scene is that we learn who Simon is, which that happens more for acting reasons. So stay tuned next episode. But what's more important is that Wilhelm's smile just takes up the entire screen.
I love that smile so much. You know I do.
Yeah.
I love that smile. His eyes are literally glowing.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this until I was watching it last night, but his eyes are legitimately shining.
Almost like he wants to cry?
No, more like, I mean, it's probably just because of like the light reflecting, but it's like it makes his eyes light up.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it was something really small that I like hyper fixated on last night.
Yeah. Wilhelm's smile is just a thing that I feel like it's just, you could just screen grab that and be like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's nothing else. Not only is there nothing else in focus, but there's literally nothing else on the screen. It's just him.
Yeah.
Like glowing. He's so happy.
Yeah. Also, I love how you said, don't ask me how many times I replayed this scene.
Okay. It was a lot. I think it was at least 6. I was like, Margaret, you've got to keep going. And I was like, but it's so good. Yeah.
I think I have one thing before we both have the same point. Okay. Which is just the scene between when Eric is on Wilhelm's bed and Wilhelm is there. Like, the framing of that scene was so beautiful to me, and like the lighting coming in from the window.
It is beautiful.
Because it's like, it's the only time the brothers are in the same shot, and it's just them alone together in a room. and like there's so much acting wise you can talk about in that scene, but like I think just like the way that it's set up is just, it's very like the room isn't very big, and so you just this very intimate feel.
It's very intimate.
And then immediately gets pulled away when Eric leaves, and we get the shot that both of us talked about, where she's just pulling away.
He looks like a lost puppy.
Pulling away from Wilhelm in the hallway.
He looks like a lost puppy. It made me actually it makes me a little bit emotional every time I see it. Because he's just being left alone, and he looks so, like, curled in on himself. Like, he's sagging his shoulders, he's picking at his nails. He, like, calls, this isn't cinematography, but he calls out to Eric, like, say hi to mom and dad for me.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that next episode. We don't have time. Like, but it's just like...
It's just, he looks so lost.
Yeah. And just like,
and
he's the only thing in frame. He's just alone. He's alone. He's been left alone.
So alone. And he's quite literally been left behind. Like, Eric had to go home, obviously, because Eric can't, like, do school again. But, like, he's very obviously being, like, and quite literally being just, like, left behind. And now he's all by himself.
Yeah.
And doesn't have anybody, like, in his corner.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about when we start getting Simone and Sarah.
Yeah, do it.
Like, this note barely makes sense to me, but I wrote it for some reason, is when we're first, because I find it gorgeous, is like when Simon and Sarah are first walking to the bus stop and it's like just them, I wrote trees and tiny people. Because we're so
I saw that last night, and I was like, yeah, go off, Anton.
We're so far away from them, but it's just like, we're like just surrounded by nature in a way that
it's a gorgeous scene.
It's in a way that we just haven't been yet.
Yeah.
And I think that really suits the way that, like, I don't know how consistent this is because I wasn't keeping track of it, but I'm curious to know if this, like, kind of keeps happening. But, like, scenes where Simon is the focus character are warmer in color.
They are. I think overall he's more of a, like, he's optimistic isn't the right word, but kind of. Whereas Wilhelm is just, like, kind of crumbling under the pressure.
Yeah. I think it's about the worlds they inhabit.
Yeah.
Like, if there's anything this episode is trying to do, is to introduce you to not only these two characters, but the worlds they're in.
Yeah.
And the people in those worlds.
100%.
And I think, for me, I noted when we're in the back of the bus with Simon and Ayub and Rosh, we're just, it isn't steady camera movement. It's like we're just on the bus with them and just jostling, like, with the bus. It's just, I call it naturalistic, of this idea of, it's like, it's just like, you're just there with them. And like, they're all close together, and it's just like, they're just close. And it just makes Simon's life seem so much warmer, especially considering, like, not two or three scenes ago, we got Wilhelm just being alone in the hallway.
Yeah. And that was a theme throughout the entire episode, was when it's Simon and like people in Simon's world, you were always, or almost always, it was like you were sitting right there with them. Whereas the Wilhelm scenes are much more structured, because, like, that's the world he's come from. His world is, like, structured to a fault. Everything is scripted. Whereas Simon's is more, like, warm and welcoming, and, like, we're all the same here.
Wilhelm is structured and at a distance.
Yeah.
And Simone is close up, but not in the way that Wilhelm's scenes are close up. Like, Wilhelm's scenes are claustrophobic.
Yes.
Simone's scenes are warm and intimate.
Yeah, it's like you're part of their group. You're part of their family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know neither of us probably you particularly don't want to be talking about this next scene for too long. But like, we got to talk about it.
We do.
More than just mentioning in the summary episode, and it'll probably maybe come up later in different and later episodes down the line. I didn't really fully realize how possible it was to make a shot of someone masturbating sad.
It is sad, especially the picture she's using.
Yeah.
Like,
we're talking about Felice, if that wasn't
obvious. Oh, yeah,
yeah. She's the only
person masturbating in episode 1. No, but you're right. It's sad. And the picture, what struck me about the picture is Wilhelm is so obviously not comfortable in his skin in those pictures. I don't know.
Which I think gets to something that is, it's revealed in dialogue, and so we can talk about it next episode, because a lot of my more dialogue focused thoughts are definitely more tied up in acting than they are in what we're seeing visually. But I think visually what we're seeing is that Felice isn't necessarily, I would posit, based on other contexts, but also just from this alone, I could adequately say, like, she's looking at his position and not him.
Yeah, she's attracted to the crown.
She's looking at a photo of the prince and not at Wilhelm.
Yes.
Like, the second son of the Swedish royal family, like, she's seeing his title.
100%.
And not him. Because if she was seeing him, I would hope that wouldn't turn her on.
Yeah, that would make me more uncomfortable than just watching somebody masturbate.
Yeah. Felice is very iffy in this episode, so we can move on. And I was trying to figure out. I need to give myself more context in my notes of what scene I'm talking about, because that took me a second. When we're sitting with someone in Sarah's family down at dinner, like, I think if this wasn't clear in my summary episode because it took too long for me to summarize and I was kind of trying to go fast, that's partially, or it just took too long because I couldn't speak fast enough. Like, so much happens in that scene that's literally only like 2 minutes long. I always get really surprised at the timestamps whenever I'm going over that scene, because I'm just like, so much dialogue happens.
It's so much. It's so dense.
And it's just like so many quick cuts, just looking from this way to this way to this way, this person to this person, this person, this person. Just like, it's alive with energy.
It is.
In a way 100%. that Wilhelm's scenes are just dead. Like,
yeah. Wilhelm's scenes are, like, I wouldn't say the camera is static, but you don't move perspective as, like, quickly, and you're right, there's not that, like, energy in it, because that's not his life. Whereas Simon's life is very, like, there's a lot of things going on. It's energetic. It's like a quote-unquote typical, like, what you would expect family.
Yeah.
Like a typical close family.
Yeah. Quick shout out to the moment when everyone starts praying in Wilhelm's first dinner scene, and then him just nervously looking around. I have more acting stuff to talk about than that, but like just the shot like, of just down the row. And I feel like I can always kind of tell which hands are Wilhelm's, even though it's cut off.
Yeah. Because
it's just like he's slightly off in everything in that scene, which is so good.
I'm with you with that.
Because it's like he's not only new, but he's also just like so uncomfortable being there.
It is.
And so it's just like he's just out of step with everything. And I think that's just genius. So I just wanted to shout out how the way that's contextualized, and we can talk about it more next episode when we talk about acting.
Yeah, no, it's a good shout out though.
We talked about this a little bit, but the scene with him on the bed with texting the Queen, I think, is the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah. just it's the first time we see him without any of his princely facade. He most likely still is probably aware that the camera is on him if we're sticking to our theory that we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the first time that he kind of is like, I don't give a shit I don't give a shit is probably not the right term, because he very obviously is uncomfortable with always being in the public eye, but it's like,
I think he's just exhausted.
Yeah, it's like he's just so exhausted that he can't care right now.
Yeah. And okay, I think I was just realizing we did talk about him in the hallway. I don't necessarily know if there's anyone looking at him in that scene. Yeah. I think he's defeated enough that it's a little bit of vulnerability, but something I was just thinking about, and this is definitely way more acting, but just we are just in this intimate moment with him where he's used up so much of his energy for the day.
Yeah.
It's taken everything he's had to get through today.
Yeah.
And he already wants to leave.
Yeah. Have you heard of spoon theory, where it's you have a certain amount of spoons for every day?
Yeah.
He's out of spoons. He's actually in spoon debt by the end of that day.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's distinctly different than when we see him in the hallway, because when we see him in the hallway, there is a chance that somebody leaves their room. There is a chance that somebody is going to be observing him. And so I think, because while he does look very lost and defeated, there's still this
he's still a little guarded.
Yeah, he's still guarded, and if you didn't know, you would probably just be like, oh, he's saying bye to his family, he's just, I don't know, sad or whatever. But you wouldn't be like, no, he's fully heartbroken and going through it.
Yeah. And then we go, right before we move on to the next scene, you get the queen saying you'll feel better, and then a quick cut to the snow globe.
Snow globe.
A frog prince, a little frog with a crown, with golden snow.
That little snow globe could get its own episode, I swear to God.
I mean, shout out to looking way ahead, the last episode of this episode cycle. Purple and orange, baby, symbolism.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. I realized that sounded very vague, but
little teaser.
Yeah. Yeah, and then in the classroom scene, we both have little stuff here and there.
Yeah.
For me, the one thing I wrote down in that scene is the very end on welfare receivers. We get that shift of focus, and I felt attacked. It was it literally just it was so clean. It was just Simon with Wilhelm being blurry, and then just shift, and we're just and now we're in Wilhelm's perspective, and we're just
and now we're the ones being called out,
right? And so I think that's just a really smart way. We haven't really had to switch perspective in the same scene yet, and because our characters haven't met yet. Our two main characters haven't met yet. So I feel that's we're teasing at this, they're in the same room together, but we're mostly we're mostly framing everything from Simon's point of view, but then also we keep cutting back to Wilhelm. And then I think just that last little just bit of shift of focus tells us, okay, for this at the start of the next scene, you're going to be in Wilhelm's perspective.
Yeah. And I liked what you said. When I was looking at your notes last night, I was like, you felt attacked. And I never really thought of it too much. I was like, oh yeah, he's just calling out Wilhelm, and he's calling his family a welfare scam. But then I read your notes and I watched the scene and I was like, oh no, like, we are Wilhelm in that scene.
Yeah.
And I did make the note that, like, the entire time, every other character is being, you see from, like, the teacher's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could very much be the person who's standing in front of the class.
Yeah.
It's only when Simon is talking or when Wilhelm is, like, looking at Simon
Mm-hmm.
or one, like, we see either of those two characters.
Yeah.
That it's taken from the perspective of, like, the other. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, when we see Wilhelm, it's like Simon is looking at him.
Yeah. I think that's curious to know, because I can't tell really if Simon is paying attention to what the prince is thinking until he just kind of looks back
Probably
at him.
Not.
And it's like,
Probably
welfare
not.
receivers. So it's like a hypothetically, if Simon was looking at him, that probably would be around the framing that the kind of framing that Wilhelm has. But like, just especially Simon, I feel like it's just very much like this is. It's like we as well as Wilhelm are thinking, who is this person?
Yeah. This boy is very intriguing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think we highlighted the same thing in the lunch scene, in the next lunch scene.
Lunch.
Because, and it's again to the end of the scene when it's like I feel like I had to rescue you, and you just pan down the entire table.
Yeah.
To just seeing Simon with his guard back up.
Yeah.
Like it highlights the distance between them, is what I wrote down. Is like we literally have to cross the physical distance between them to get back to Simon. Yeah,
and we talked about this a bit last episode, I think. Mm-hmm. I think it was the last one. And we talked about how, like, when August does that, he immediately pulls Wilhelm back into, like, his world. Like, the world that he comes from.
Yeah.
And I think just, like, the way that shot is, the way that that's done, and we see that is, like, again, it's, like, you see that physical, like, removing him from Simon and putting him down by his second cousin.
Yeah.
When they're talking to each other in that scene, whichever boy we're looking at, whether it's Simon or Wilhelm, they are the only thing in focus. They're not the only thing in frame, but they're the only thing in focus.
Yeah.
So, like, you're aware that there's other people moving around, but they are not what that boy is looking at, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there's definitely a soft, like a sharp enough focus that you're just like, they are, until August pulls him away.
Yeah.
They kind of are just they're in a world of their own for a little bit.
Yeah, and when August pulls them away, then everything around them is, like, in sharp focus. Yeah, there's nothing that's, like, blurred out. Yeah.
Yeah, you're back to just, like,
yeah.
And that wasn't a sentence, but I'll just keep it in. I don't think you have notes on this, but I wanted a quick touch on just, like, the scene with Micah and the ways in which we follow behind Simon into the apartment to just witness the mess at the same time he does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we don't need to really dwell on that because I think that kind of just says all it needs to, but, like,
it does.
Like, really what we're talking about with these episodes, the art of the frame, is the ways in which the choices of the camera work and the blocking impact our understanding of the story. And I think you cannot, like, there are moments where that scene becomes more subtle. There's moments where that scene becomes more subtle. And just, like, you start to kind of see things from some of Micah's perspective. But if you walk away from that scene thinking we should be totally sympathetic to Micah, I think you're reaching just a little bit.
I would agree with that. Like,
that is still Simon's scene. as much as we can maybe get glimmers of what Mick is thinking.
Yeah.
Also, the close up on Simon's dead eyes, like it's almost a match for the same level of close up as we had of Wilhelm smiling.
That's true. Wow, I didn't put that together.
Yeah, that, and also it to somewhat of a lesser extent. You also have it in the after I'm gay dad, and he's like, oh, a cute guy then. That little smile.
Yeah.
It's less close up, but like,
yeah.
But like especially when Simon's just like taking in everything before him.
Yep.
It's again a little bit of an inverse in this moment, because shoot, we didn't even talk about this last episode because I'm just realizing it now.
Go do it.
Wilhelm is we have this shot of Wilhelm being so happy the moment that Simon enters his life. And if you contextualize why Simon is there in Mika's apartment, it's because Wilhelm entered his life. Because the alcohol is for Wilhelm's initiation party, and August wouldn't have even approached Simon if he wasn't this concerned about looking good in front of Prince Eric.
Yeah, you're right.
And so it's like, we've talked about how like Simon's scenes are so warm, Wilhelm's scenes are so cold, but then you also have this little inverted bit where like Wilhelm is so happy, and Simone is the one with dead eyes this time when we zoom in on him.
Yeah, and I agree. I do agree.
And then
I wouldn't.
Yeah, you're good.
I wouldn't go so far as to be like, Wilhelm's happy because Simon entered his life, and now Simon is miserable because Wilhelm entered his life. No. I wouldn't go that far, but I do agree, and I'm not saying that you were going that far, but I do agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, everything in the show is going to be more nuanced than takes that one of us kind of just randomly says, but like it is. I point this out because I don't want what we've said thus far to come off as like a reduction of what the show is doing, because I feel like almost every time that either one of us is going to say something like really broad and overarching, we're going to find something within that same episode that contradicts what we just said and makes it more complicated.
Yes. The show is very nuanced.
Yeah. Which is why we can spend so long talking about it.
And it's what makes it good.
Yes. Also, I wrote, "Stop! This hug is not okay," which is just
It's not.
Like literally, if you pause at 32:15, audience, get ready for some pain, because Simon's eyes are open, and I don't know why that bothered me more this time around than previously, because I've noticed it before, that he never closes his eyes while his father's touching him.
No, because he's always on guard.
Yeah.
He's waiting for like the second shoe to
drop.
But
like, it's framed in such a way where like he is around him, and we just can see enough of Simon's body to just know he's just stuck still.
Yeah. It like even takes him a second to just like pat his father's back, which is, this is the choice, but I'm just putting it out there. I'm just saying it. It's just the way it's framed in the acting. He's so uncomfortable to be in his father's embrace that like it's palpable.
Yeah. Did you have anything about the hazing scene? I just thought it's fucked up, but also
it is fucked
masterfully
up.
Done.
It's disgusting, but cinematically so good. I kind of don't have a lot to say about it because of that.
I I made the mistake of watching it multiple times to see if I had anything more to say. And I was like, nope.
You had to watch it that many times for the summary episode, and then you put yourself through it for this one as well.
Yeah,
Damn,
for the
you're
audience.
The real trooper.
I was messaging Margaret while summarizing the hazing scene for her summary episode, being like, I just had to watch the spit cup scene like 8 times in a row to describe it. Like, it's terrifying. God. It's just like we just like go from like family trauma to giving your audience trauma by putting them in a horror movie.
Yeah. The frame that I'm thinking of specifically is when you're looking from Wilhelm's point of view and it's just the like scary masks are all you can see. That's like particularly horrifying to me, and I don't know why.
For me, it's the same clown mask that I feel like everyone kind of focuses on, but it's that moment when the whoever's in the clown mask just like touches Wilhelm's face with his nose. Like, I had to write about that in the summary scene, and I was like, I'd never noticed that before, and I didn't want to notice it. Like, yeah, just well done. We don't need to discuss it any more than we already have.
I think. Okay, wait, because now that you say that, not everybody, Christina and August at the beginning of the episode kept touching his face to like look at his cut. He's got no bodily autonomy. Like, we talk about how he has no privacy, but he also like doesn't have control about, like, he does not have bodily autonomy.
Yeah. I mean, with August, he just does that with everybody. Like, I think specifically in the moment when he ruffles Simone's hair.
Yeah, that's true.
You're not wrong. You're definitely not wrong. I think he's definitely, because his image is so carefully cultivated, people are gonna care how he looks.
Yeah, that's just something I noticed when you mentioned the nose being dragged across his face. It's like people are always grabbing his face for something.
Before we get into the party proper, I wanted to highlight the reverse shot of when Simon and Sarah enter the party and Wilhelm is on the couch, and it's like we literally see them looking at each other, which I feel like is the first time that actually happens. We're like the first time they're actually seeking each other out in a scene without realizing that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Or like the first time like they just notice each other without trying to notice each other. Also the fact that it's over August saying keep your friends closer, enemies closer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Agreed.
Yes. I definitely agree. You say your point about our perspective in the party.
Okay, yeah. The way, like, when they have, like, I guess it's a mosh pit. That's what I'm going to refer to it as. But, like, all the people, we are very much just another person at that party. We're not, like, watching it from a distance. We're not, like, some sort of, like, third-party observer. It's like we are in the party. It's like we've attended, we are in the palace. We're going to get offered drinks next.
Yeah, we're another one of the students. Yeah. Like, we're at eye level with everyone, so we could just conceivably just, like, look over and see anybody. Yeah. And in the spirit of that, something I did not catch, literally until this watch through, is when Wilhelm is chugging beer.
Yeah.
We have a quick, like, couple seconds shot where we introduce that Simon has his, like, halo crown glow stick on, and he is smiling fondly at Villa. It is clearly at Villa having fun.
Yeah.
And I'd never caught this before, because I think in my head, I just kind of always kind of just pegged Simone strictly into how like his awkwardness when Wilhelm first approaches him in like in a scene or two.
Yeah.
But like we get this moment of confirming for us that like Simone is watching Wilhelm as much as Wilhelm is watching Simone.
Yeah.
We're just following Wilhelm a bit closer because of what the show is.
100%. Yeah. I agree.
Like, I think there are moments when the show can sometimes tip a little bit too much in Wilhelm's direction from episode to episode and scene to scene like, in order for me to feel like it's a totally, like, balanced dynamic and balanced story that we're receiving. But it's moments like these when I catch them are me seeing like, okay, no, like we have enough evidence to be like to know what Simone is thinking here.
Yeah.
It just might be easier to follow Wilhelm.
Yeah, we see a lot more of the like we overtly see a lot more of the like what Wilhelm is thinking and them feeling and experiencing. And I think the way that we see what Simon is thinking, feeling, and experiencing, while we do overtly see it some of the time, we also see it in those small moments. Which I think is important.
Definitely. Want to talk about Drunk Sarah for a little bit?
Drunk Sarah. Yeah. I mean, like, just for starters, when she's just, like, chugging everybody's not finished drink, and then she's kind of the only person you're really watching in those scenes. Everything else is kind of... It's, like, blurred out, but I can't remember if it's, like, blurred out because it's, like, made to be blurred out, or if there's just, like, so much motion around her and she's the only one that's, like, relatively still. I can't remember the exact... But she's the only one that we're, like, focusing on. And then she's walking down that hallway, and just, like, the lighting is beautiful. Like, the purple...
For me, that's what I've started latching on first, is, like, when we just get that close-up of her, and she's laughing, and it's from her perspective of just, like, the sound is kind of just not all there.
Yeah.
Like, it's another one of our little close-ups on characters that we've gotten we've gotten like a bit of here to here. August and Felice are probably the ones we get the least of it of. Yeah. But like of the characters we're like really following, and especially at this point like meant to rooting for, I think they each kind of get their moment of like direct close-up of in a moment of high emotion.
Yeah. I agree.
And then we also get Felice smiling up at Sarah, and she calls her pretty she calls her pretty for the second time, and Sarah's hands are like on her face.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really pretty shot.
Yeah. Because
it's like you see that little moment of Felice being like, "Who is this girl?"
Yeah.
And actually, she's not half bad.
It's like their turning point, because before that, it was very hostile between the two. At least on like Felice's side. Sarah was not being hostile, but Felice was. And then
also teaser for a couple episodes from now. It's also a great fodder for the shippers.
Yes, it is.
I'll leave that there.
I will also leave it there. Just putting it out there.
We can discuss later.
Stay tuned.
Yes. Alrighty. At this point, mostly your last point, your last note is just talking about the lighting in the party scene, which is very good. I think we've talked about that. I have so many thoughts about the last scene.
I know you do, which is why I left it off for my notes.
I love you. Okay, let's get into this. I feel like I might be speeding through this, but I think I just wanted to impart to you all that I have so many thoughts here because there are so many great shots in this scene. You have these, when we first see them outside together, and it's just like two boys you'd be unlikely to see. Wait, no. Backing up. I'm talking about when Wilhelm tells him to wait when they're still inside the palace, and just at a distance, you just see these two people who like could not, literally just like they just look like they're from two different worlds.
Yes.
But like us as kind of an outside observer, just kind of like seeing them interact for one of the first times ever.
Yes.
And then we get outside with them later, and I called it like friendly but not intimate distance away from each other. Like I would say like they're like a couple feet away from each other, which is like a distance that you're just like, you're not strangers, but you're also not particularly close. And then you have, I don't know, did you, like, I guess up to that point, do you have anything that you want to talk about beyond what I've said?
No, I fully agree with what you said. I think that, like, not strangers, close, but, like, not intimate. I think that's important because it's also very much where their relationship is at right now. Like, it's friendly, you know, they've interacted a few times, but it's important to note that, like, nothing has really happened between the two of them yet. So I feel like that very much reflects the point of where the relationship is.
And then next I have just the stillness of the moment when someone has asked him if he likes it here at Halishka. And we're just like sitting in the silence with Villa, just static camera on him, just like wondering if he should be honest. And we have this light from like presumably like the stars or whatever, just like hitting him just off frame. From just off frame, and then you have this like Simon is still kind of partially in the shot. He's just like super blurry, but he's still taking up like half the screen. And so I feel like that for me, that's how I kind of read it, is like he's clearly still having to give a response to this other person who is still there. Like we're not totally forgetting that Simone is there because he's still like technically visible, just not clear. And I feel like for me that just really weighted the scene more heavily, and like Wilhelm is aware that this response like is to somebody else, and he's actually being intently listened to, and so he's like being like, is this the time to be honest? And then he decides not to be. And then I love this. Simone's, again, we finally do get a moment of Simone being happy, taking up an entire frame of his when we hear Nils be like, Wilhelm's probably out making out with someone, and then Simone, I finally define what it is. It's a would it be so crazy grin, like it's just like it. He's just like like he says, and it's like
maybe.
We're definitely in Wilhelm's perspective in that shot too, which just makes it perfect.
Yeah, because you've got Simon's like, maybe, would that be so bad if we were making out? And then you have Wilhelm like, what?
Just panicking,
doing what?
Yeah. And then, like, I also want to shout out the shot when Wilhelm put his hand on Simone's mouth, technically for the second time, but like it's the first time he like keeps his hand on Simone's mouth, and like it's like instead of just a quick movement, like it's a full shot of just that them like staying like that for a moment. It's very
it's just like staring at each other like,
it's like that's an image I have in my head, and then the last two things I have are the final shot on Simone's face and the final shot on Villa's face, and then the decision to cut to credits the moment Wilhelm closes his eyes, which you You can, but also
It's so cruel.
I'm realizing now you can write a whole essay on what cutting when Wilhelm closes his eyes does. Like it's
Yeah. You absolutely could. It's beautiful. It's a really good choice. I feel like the episode wouldn't have been left with the same tone if they had showed what happens next.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happens.
Yeah, regardless of what happens. But I think also if you kind of just even take for granted that they decided like, oh no, we're not going to actually play the scene out to completion.
Yeah.
When do we cut? And I think they chose the perfect place.
It was so perfect. As much as it like sometimes kills me because I want to know what happened next, it's such a perfect place to cut it that I can't even be mad about it.
Yeah. And I think that like it makes them better. I don't like the fact we don't know makes them better because
yeah,
what are these little like reading into these little looks and these shots that we're saying are from their perspective? Like what is all of that other than us kind of just trying to fill in the gaps that the show leaves for us of like really getting into these characters' heads of being like, when was this? What are they thinking here? Like when does this like click for them? And there's just so much left unsaid that it's very smart writing because you can just let your audience do the work for you.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, good shows let the audience infer things. At least good shows for me. They let the audience kind of come to their own conclusions about certain things and like kind of piece it together, make sense of some things.
Yeah.
And like give the audience the space to do
really
that.
What I think I've often heard it worded as, and I like this, I like saying this, the best shows are the ones that don't treat their audience like they're stupid. Or just don't hold their audience's hand. Like, I don't know if this is part of an effect of the fact that we're American and we're watching a show in Swedish with the subtitles. But like, I feel like even in Swedish, Young Reels moves at a fast enough clip that like you're not really guided through this world. You're kind of just like yanked through it from scene to scene, like learning kind of alongside Wilhelm, but also just kind of just like within this listening in on these characters, like what the hell is happening. Like it's written really well that like you never feel lost or like in need of exposition, really. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, what's so great about that is that you never do that. They never give you exposition at the cost of making lines feel forced, which is so difficult to do.
Yes. A lot of good shows fall pit to that. And this show is really good about not.
Although I think now we're starting to get into art of the choice territory.
Yeah, we are.
So with that,
we should probably call it. All right. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to keep up to date with when we release new episodes and other pod-related announcements, you can check out our Instagram at People Don't Talk About. Our next episode will be the first of a new episode type entitled The Art of the Choice. In it, we'll be discussing details of the acting choices in Season 1, Episode 1. So stay tuned. And with that, all there's left to say is...
Let's start a revolution, baby.